right, and the special guest fest continues here on episode 100 of the Garage Beers podcast. And this one we are so excited about, A, because of who he is, but B, because of the topic we get to talk about, the Cleveland Cavaliers, one of the most fun things to talk about in all of Cleveland right now. And the man we're going to do it with, one of the most integral basketball players in the history of the Cavaliers, and his presence helped to take the early Cavs from expansion franchise to miracle at Ridgefield and beyond, and now it continues as the color commentator on the Cavs broadcasts every game. It is none other than Mr. Cavalier, Austin Carr. Welcome to the Garage Beers podcast.
Thank you. It's been. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, we are looking forward to it as well, and we are going to get into all kinds of things from the Cavs, from a little bit of your journey in basketball. But before we do that, okay. one of our common friends sent us a message, Tim Alcorn, who is also a colleague of yours.
Yes.
So I sent Tim a message. I said, is there anything funny, any funny stories that I should ask AC about while we're talking to him? And he responded with this. He said, ask AC about the time we were in Toronto in the winter, and we had to walk outside from the plane to customs with the wind howling and snow blowing in our faces, and he'll finish the rest of the story.
Well, yeah, that was funny. Well, what happened was before we had got off the bus, and we were just talking about how people look at our jobs as glamorous. And I was sitting there telling Tim, I said, this is far from glamorous to me. Getting in and out planes all the time, traveling all over the place. Say it's not glamorous. It's just a good job that we enjoy, and that's it. So as soon as we get off the bus, the wind is howling, man, and there's snow coming everywhere. We get down to get our bags, and I turn around to Tim and I said, Tim, this is the glamorous life. And Tim broke out laughing. That was so funny, but man, it was so cold. Oh boy, I don't care what kind of coat you had on, the wind was going right through you. It was just one of those bone-chilling days, and snow was coming so fast, it was hitting you in the face. So it was one of those crazy days. I was really surprised we were able to land that day. It was so bad.
The different kind of cold in Canada. It's a different kind of cold.
Yes, it is. Yes, different kind of cold. Yep.
Yeah, those road trips are a little different when you see Toronto or Minneapolis in December and January instead of Miami and Phoenix.
Yep. And it's always that way. For some reason, the scheduling is always that way for us.
I feel like that's all of pro sports, because I feel like now they're the Guardians, but the Guardians they always open the baseball season at home in March.
I never understood that about baseball. I mean, when that the weather is going to be like that, why subject the players to that? Because you can get injured a lot in that kind of situation. Why not set it up to where they are out of town during that time where they're playing in warm weather? So, I mean, it just would make sense to me.
Yeah.
We're not going to do things that make sense. That's how that works.
Right.
So, Austin, everyone in Cleveland knows you as Mr. Cavalier, but before you were Mr. Cavalier, you were a really gifted kid from Washington, D.C., who made his way to Notre Dame to play some basketball. What was that like for a kid in the 60s to go from Washington, D.C. To the heartland, to South Bend, Indiana, to Notre Dame?
Yeah.
When you look back, what was that like for you?
It's a little bit of a culture shock, because it was, coming from DC, it was fast moving, a lot of things to do there, and then all of a sudden I'm in South Bend, Indiana, and nothing to do and slow. So and on top of that, it was a all male school, so and then we had different things. It was just different there. So and then the weather was like this. Actually, the weather was worse than this, because a lot of days we could get up. I mean, we would go to bed really with no snow on the ground and wake up. You couldn't see out your window. It was so much snow. I mean, it was just that type of weather, and it could happen anytime. I mean, a lot of times we'd go into the game, no snow, and we come out of the game and you walk through 2 feet of snow trying to get home. So it was really an experience, and but once I got used to the protocols and what you had to do to try and mesh my studies with basketball. Once I got used to that, then it sort of leveled out. And then I started playing when we started playing and traveling and stuff. So all that kind of balanced out. But at first, that first year, man, was tough.
I can only imagine. And again, people, you think about what Washington, D.C. must have been like as a kid growing up in the 60s. I mean, all the stuff going on in the 60s, and then you just find yourself in South Bend, Indiana.
Yeah, that was quite an experience.
And recruiting was different in the 60s, obviously. I mean, it's so, now you send a text message, you're on a plane, you're somewhere in a minute. You can get to know somebody like what we're doing right now on a Zoom call, where you can talk face to face.
Yep.
How do you get to know Notre Dame from Washington in the 60s?
I'll tell you a little story of how when I signed. My family is from my family actually is from North Carolina. My mother and father were born there, and I was sitting there. I was going to have dinner to sign with the University of North Carolina, but at this time, I had also talked with the people from Notre Dame. So I had promised both of them that I'd have dinner with them, which I should have never done, but I did. And so I had dinner with Dean Smith, and I told him, I said, I promised Notre Dame that I would go have dinner with him and go talk with him. So I said, and then I'll call you back and I'll sign the document. So I went to dinner with Notre Dame, and it just, and see, in the back of my mind, I knew that I was going to go to Notre Dame because my father was very heavily involved in the whole process. My family's Catholic, and my father just, back at that time, you listen to your parents. Now it's a little different. So after dinner, I signed right there with Notre Dame, and Dean Smith. Every time I saw him after that, he never let me forget that. He told me, he said, "You had a great career," he said, "but you probably would have won a championship with us, because I would have been the second Black player at North Carolina playing with Charlie Scott."
Wow.
And Rex, what was Rex's name? No, it was Rusty Clark. And so it was, and they had a nice team. So it would have been, I would have had an opportunity there, but at the same time, and then my father was happy, but my mother's side of the family, they wanted me to go there to North Carolina so bad, but I'll take what happened. I'll go that way again, because I had a great experience in Notre Dame, and how they handle you as an individual was very good, because as a high school student into there, it took me about a year to get adjusted to the demands that they have, and they stuck with you, and it just was a great experience, and I got my degree out of it, so it all worked out well at the end.
So you look back, because we're going to get to your time with the Cavaliers, but we, again, in Cleveland, especially like the younger generation, they know you as the voice, they know you as Mr. Cavalier, they know your banner hangs in the arena, right?
Right.
What a lot of people, especially younger people, might not know is that in college basketball, you're one of the greatest college basketball players that ever lived. To this day, you played 7 NCAA tournament games, and you are the only person in history where your average points scored per game is 50. You scored 50 points per game in the NCAA tournament. Did the college game just kind of come natural and come easy for you, or how do you explain the success?
Well, really, we had a system where we ran where everybody had his own little, and one of mine happened to be the scoring, and Jackie Meehan was the point guard, and his was assisting. I mean, in the game I got 61, he had 25 assists, but they weren't keeping assists like they are now.
Oh,
so it was just the way Carlos Jones, who ended up in the ABA, he averaged about 25 points, 24 points a game. So, I mean, we had a nice little system there, and it got to the point where we just needed one more person to win a championship, and we just couldn't get that fourth guy that could step up and give us what we needed at the end.
Now, when you look back, Austin, what do you look back on with more fondness? Some of your records, or the fact that you guys were the last team to beat UCLA before they went on to win 88 straight games?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I like the records, but beating UCLA and John Wooden at that time, when they were the biggest thing in the world in college basketball, was really something that I hang my hat on, because that was something that really stuck out. As a matter of fact, people still talk to me about it today, that the best college games they've ever seen. And it was just a great experience. I mean, the records, the only really thing I hate about the records is we never won a championship. And to me, the way I was raised playing the game of basketball was winning was what all counts. And that was really the one thing that got away from me, is we didn't get a chance to win it all. I mean, we just needed one more guy, and we just couldn't find that one more guy. But at the same time, it was quite an experience. But that UCLA game, man, I have a copy of it now. But the copy of it is nowhere near what it should be, because TV wasn't and video wasn't what it is now. So kind of
right.
It's kind of fuzzy, but it's still there. But it's something that I cherish. But at the same time, it's been so long ago now, so I look so different when out there with that uniform on. But it was quite an experience. But I'll take the records. I'll take the records second and the game first.
I love it. It just hit me. Just a few weeks ago, your broadcast partner was on here with us, John Michael. Just hit me. You guys are both Notre Dame guys.
Yes.
So
right.
How unbearable are you guys when it's Notre Dame football season, or when the tournament comes around? Do people try to avoid you two?
Yeah, well, we definitely, we try not to show it, but at the same time, we're definitely pro Notre Dame. We just can't help it. And and John is funny because he's actually an attorney by trade, and he is just he's a great guy to work with. We have a good time, and it's just and really it makes it easier when the team is playing like they're playing. It just makes it a lot easier to do the games, because when the last 2 or 3 seasons losing was just, because you get so emotionally involved in it, sometimes it's hard to not show your disappointment. So it's just easier, man. It's easier now. It's a fun ride now.
It sure is. So you get drafted first overall, first pick of the 1971 NBA draft of the Cavaliers. And that's a unique position, because they'd only been around for a year before you got drafted to them.
Yeah.
And so, what kind of pressure did you feel coming out of Notre Dame, where you're this, iconic basketball player? Now you're the #1 overall pick to a franchise that has zero history. And what kind of advice do you try to pass on to some of these other younger guys who are looked at as being like, hey, you're going to be a franchise player?
Right. Well, just like I try to not to, with the younger guys, I try not to get into what they mean to the franchise and what's going on. I try to get more into and being ready to perform every night, and then what it means when you perform well, like they're doing now, how the most important thing is you go for success first and you get your accolades second. Because what happens in the NBA a lot is guys go for the accolades and don't think about the success, and then you have too many singular thinking people out there. And what has really been the Cavaliers' a big point of I think is the fact that they have everybody thinking for each other, and that makes a huge difference. And that little bit of energy comes out on the court when you need it, and that's kind of how we were when I played. And that was That's becoming quite a story now with the Cavaliers and how they're performing.
Austin, what do you think? What do you think was the turning point for this team? We drafted Sexton, then here comes Garland. He's kind of plagued by an injury or two. His first 2 years.
Mhm.
Was the drafting of Evan Mobley kind of like the turning point for this team and why this team is so good? Like it seems like it just switch just kind of flipped for this team,
Right,
compared to the last 2 years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and I think what Evan did was it gave the vision of playing big ball, playing big ball instead of small ball. And I think once they got a grip on how they wanted to go about it, playing the big ball, which is going totally against the grain of the NBA. They are playing totally against what everybody feels is the right way. Now,
Yeah.
we beat a team last night, the Nets, who are playing small ball, but they have good shooters all the way across the board. When you put Durant back with that team, they're going to be hard to handle. But at the same time, we are learning how to use our bigs to force the small ball teams to do more double teaming, more trying to shrink the floor. And what that does, if you're moving the ball, now you find open men, because actually the defense will tell you where the ball should go. And that is something that I think we are starting to learn. But this team has really stepped up, and really they're way ahead of schedule. I mean, when you look at how they function,
Yeah.
it takes you about half a season, 3/4 of a season to learn how to win at home consistently. It takes the same amount of time, maybe a little longer, to learn how to win on the road consistently. They're doing all this in a 3-month period. And when you look at how, I think the turning point probably was, Coach Bickerstaff has done a super job of conveying his message to the team and what he wants. And what I really think has been the key is the fact that he has all human beings who are listening human beings and not selfish. That to me is the key to the whole thing, because when you have one or two selfish people in that group, it changes the dynamic of the team in the locker room. They don't have that, and that to me is what taking them to another level. That's been unbelievable how they've come together this soon. I mean, and they still, just imagine if they had Rubio and Sexton. I don't know how. How to make all that work? Then I guess the backcourt would be a lot stronger. But really, they have good resilience, and that to me is something that they need too, because with the COVID situation, and imagine Rubio was the heart of the team, and Rubio, when he went down, I was like, oh man, because he was the heart and soul of the team. Everybody, Darius has learned so much from Rubio now. You can see it starting to happen. The way to move the ball, the way the team is all, Rubio brought all of that. And Coach Bickerstaff was smart enough to kind of let it happen instead of trying to orchestrate it. And so now the team is all in a situation to where they are used to playing, like Coach like to say, we want you to be the best version of yourself. So as a player, what that does for you, it makes you feel freedom. It makes you feel like you can go out and play your game and be yourself. Now, once you get going like that and you start playing your game, now you've learned how your game fits into the system that he wants. And it might sound, integral, and it might sound like it's a very hard thing, but it's not hard to do when you have individuals who think the way these guys think. They are for each other, So as long as they stay like that, I think this team is going to be a tough team to handle. And they're learning it's tough to learn on the ropes, on the fly. And think about they've lost before the first, I think, 20 games of the season, they lost 9 games in the last 5 minutes of the game. They lost 9 games like that.
Yeah.
Then 9 or 10 games. If they take those 9, 5, and take half of those and put them on the winning side, we're the leaders in the East.
Right.
But they've learned from those 9 games. And really, you can start seeing it now, especially Darius. He has learned. And now you don't see him panic in those times like they did at the beginning, speeding up. They take their time, get going. And then I can't say enough about how much Darius has grown as a leader in the point guard in this league. But he learned a lot from Rubio.
Well, and Austin, you brought up something that, you were a shooting guard, and this is a note that I had. Because one thing that I had noticed at the beginning of the year, you brought up the way that these guys are listening, right? And they're playing within the system that JB is putting out there, and they're doing their part. And we're not seeing any of that. Oh, this is the way I want to do it, or this is the way I want to do it. And I think the perfect example of that, before he got hurt for the season, was Colin Sexton. Colin Sexton was averaging like 17 points a game. It wasn't that he has to have the ball in his hands and he's got to take all the shots and he's got to be the guy doing everything. It felt like Colin Sexton was playing a completely different game of basketball this year than he had been playing the past couple of years. And
he was starting to learn to play within the system. See, the key to the whole thing, that's why when you have a system and you play in a system, that's why it's important to have it. Because I'm going to tell you, Jetty, Windler, even Stevens, and Okoro to a bigger point. All these guys are system guys.
right.
In other words, they're not the one-on-one kind of guys that you give them the ball and they can go out like a Durant and get you 25 every night. These are guys that can get you 10 to 15 points consistently in a system because they know the system and they play well without the ball. And that is what I think is another key for our team is we have so many guys now who you can't sit on. You can't, but like okay, last night you had Kyrie and Harden. So you can devise a defense to their key plays where you can sit on them and you can figure out how to make it tough for them. You can't stop them, but you can make it tough for them. But we have 6 or 7 guys that averaging double figures that you can't. Who you going to guard for? The only person you can probably guard for is planned for is Darius.
Right.
Yeah.
And as long as we don't get stuck on the high pick and roll every play, and we use dribble entries and passing the ball into the high post and then letting the bigs work, as long as we mix that in there so defenses can't, and Brad likes to say this all the time, which I think is very important, you got to change the eye level of the defense.
Yes.
In other words, don't always keep high pick and roll, high pick and roll. Throw it down low in the baseline and let the big people go to work and go from there. And that's where I think, because I'm kind of rambling on here because it's exciting.
Yeah.
Because Darius to me is really to the point where he's understanding now how big, important getting the big people involved is. Because when you get them involved, they protect the basket. I mean, Allen and Mobley last night blocked some of the best shots. I mean, Mobley is uncanny with the be able to block your shot and not. It is.
Yeah.
Well, I've never seen a rookie have that kind of influence that he has, and Allen the same way. I mean, it's amazing. They blocked some shots last night where the guy was under the bag getting ready to make a layup, and I don't know how they got their head on the ball without fouling, but it's really you're starting to see what the team is all about now. And at first I couldn't see it. It was early, but they played enough games now until this is who they are.
Right.
And all they're going to do is get better from here.
Austin, I'm going to throw it back for one more minute because I'm fascinated by something. I want to get your take on this.
Okay.
Today's game is so predicated on that three-point line, right?
Yes.
It is so predicated. The three-point line is almost like a physical thing you can feel out on the court at this point. Guys know where they are. They know how to get behind that line. guys like we watched yesterday, James Harden has made a career out of that step back move to make sure he gets behind the line to get that 3-point shot.
Yeah, and they practice that too. Yeah.
You were in the NBA for 8 seasons as a shooting guard before the 3-point shot was even created and brought to the NBA.
Right.
So throw it back for a minute, because now it's just something like you said. They practice. They work for those 3-pointers. Right. Cavaliers included. You got big guys that can shoot those 3-pointers.
Right.
When they transition that, when they said, okay, we're going to put this line out and this shot's going to be worth 3 points. Mm-hmm. What does that do to a shooting guard in the NBA? What's your mindset? Did you change how you played after that? Did you try to avoid it?
Well, actually, that's almost what we did, because the only time we used the 3-point shot when it first came in was the last 5 minutes of the game if we were behind. That was the only time we shot it. Otherwise, we thought it was a bad shot. So we didn't take it. I mean, that's just the way the mindset was of the league then. And so it was only a shot used to try and catch up. And that was it. Otherwise, it was throw the ball in the post and play the mid-range game if the post is not there.
So what do you like? What do you like now that you watch today's game versus then? Do you like it better this way?
Well, I like the way the Cavs play it. I mean, I believe that if you're going to shoot the 3, you know, you can't be perimeter focused the whole time, because, like, again, you don't change the eye level of the defense. So what happens is guys start getting used to how to defend it. And so you really are, and last night, the Nets did a good job of once in a while going down low from the top. But really, conventional basketball would tell you, you start inside first and let the inside game establish itself. Now, when you throw it back out, I always felt better when I had got the ball and had a defense coming to me, as opposed to having a defense already there and trying to figure it out. So I like it when the defense is coming to me. So now I may get a 3-point shot, but I know right away if you can block it or if you're not going to get there. I already know, because I see what's in front of me, which way to go. If you stop me from taking a shot, I know where to go with it. So I always like going inside out with the 3-point play, but the 3-point shot. But I would have loved it because I shot the ball from the outside anyway. It was another 2 feet back. I'd have to learn how to do that, and that's no problem. That wouldn't have been a problem.
All right, Austin. Let's take it back to this team for a second. You've been watching Kevin Love since he arrived in Cleveland. And this is the happiest I think I've ever seen him. Skipping around down the sidelines, high-fiving guys. I mean, just playing an incredible role on this team. Is this the best you've seen him since he's arrived?
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is more like, well, he can understand what's happening. Again, Kevin is a systems guy also. I mean, and it's just that he had the ability to go inside or out. And really, now I have to take my hat off to him. He accepted the second role that's coming off the bench. He accepted that because that was the major problem at the beginning. But just like he did in the Olympics, when he realized he wasn't in shape enough to deal with the Olympics, he backed out. When he came to Coach Bickerstaff, he said, "Look, okay, I want to do whatever I need to do for this team to make it work." And then so that to me told me where his mindset was. It's about winning. And see, that alone probably made all the other guys fall in the line, because when you see a guy who's won a championship with you and he's no longer worried about starting, he's ready to help the team, that really made these young guys see what was going on. And I think that had a lot to do with galvanizing everybody.
What a great point. What a great point. And that's something that I hadn't really thought about, but what a great point that is to watch a guy that's won a championship, to watch a guy that's a multiple-time All-Star, a guy that's done a lot in this league, and Kevin Love say, hey, listen, I'm going to play my role and I'm going to do it to the best of my ability. What that did for the rest of the team, a young team, is probably Huge.
Yeah, he's a big part of the team too. Big part. Team's game plan to stop him when he comes in the game now because he's so productive.
So a couple more quick questions, Austin. The Cavs have put themselves in a weird spot, a difficult spot from one perspective. All of a sudden, they're a contender.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, they're fighting for a top seed in the East.
Yes.
All of a sudden, we're not talking about scratching or clawing our way into that little play-in tournament. We're talking about hosting a playoff series is the goal at this point.
Exactly right.
So here's the challenge that Kobe Altman, JB Bickerstaff, and this crew find themselves in. Every report out there said they're going to be pretty active when the trade market, with the trade market. And they've already shown that when they went out and got Rajon Rondo. The indications are that they're still going to be pretty active. I don't know what that means. I don't think anybody knows what that means, but they're going to be looking for ways where they think they can improve this team. And I think a word that's going to come into play a lot is going to be the word chemistry, because there seems to be almost perfect chemistry on this Cavaliers team right now. So as a guy that spent a lot of time in a locker room, who understands I think fans and journalists and stuff, we say the word chemistry, but I've never been in an NBA locker room. So I don't really know what that means. How important is chemistry, and how easily, if you bring in the wrong guy, how easily can chemistry be messed up?
And then the very next day, I mean,
wow.
It's a fragile thing that they're dealing with now, because they found 15 souls that all want to be together. And all it needs is one guy who gets individualistic, and then they can destroy the whole thing. So that's what's going to be key. Whoever they get, if they bring somebody in here, they have to know what kind of person that person is and what his intentions are in the locker room. I mean, in other words, if you have a guy who only focus is winning ball games to get better, or you got a guy who's trying to come in, get him another contract by dominating the ball and controlling everything. So it's a tough situation that they're in now as far as picking the right person, because that's going to mean a lot to the chemistry in that locker room, because one person can get everybody to shut down. But if he's not totally individualistic, he would have to conform, because there's so many guys in there who want to play together. And I would think if you're going to get a guy, he's going to come from a situation that they're not quite doing as good as maybe he would like to. So he might be easier to fit in because he's looking for success also. He wants success. And that changes people. That changes the player.
I think it's a great point, because I think there's so many rumors that go around. Oh, this guy's going to be available. This guy's on the trading block. And as a fan perspective, you go, well, that would be awesome. It'd be great to see this guy. But if you could bring in a really talented player who could negatively impact this team. And so it's a really challenging position that they're going to be in.
And like what Coach Fitz used to always tell me, he said, AC, if you can play, they don't trade you. He said, so you got to, there's something wrong here. Why they want to trade him. So you got to make sure you know what that is.
So AC, one last question for you. This has been awesome having you on, talking a little basketball with you, and hopefully getting ready for those home playoff series that we all want to see.
Yes.
But lastly, and this is just in my head, I can always hear your voice when I'm watching the games. I can hear it throw the hammer down, especially when you're excited and your voice kind of gets lost. I love that. But I will always envision you sitting next to your broadcast partner, Fred McLeod, in a video that his wife, Beth, put online in 2016, in the final moments of the championship, where your voice is gone and his hands, or his head is in his hands, and he's crying.
Yeah.
What was it like, with everything we've gone through, obviously, and losing Fred, when you look back at that moment, how special was that to share that moment with him
that was something I'll never forget. First of all, we wasn't supposed to be there because the NBA they didn't want anybody doing anything but them.
Right.
And that's the way it is during the playoffs. But for some reason, I don't know how we worked it out. but Fred and I got a chance to broadcast the game back to the arena. And it was amazing because I don't know how I know how they found it now, because there was an air conditioned duct about a foot above my head, and all I so and everybody that was next to us spoke a different language than English. It was all the foreign broadcast people. And it was quite an experience. But man, when we won that championship and Fred started crying, man, it was unbelievable. It was quite an experience. And trying to get down to the floor was tough. And then one guy wanted to fight me. I said, look, man, I got to work tomorrow. You got to work tomorrow. So why we? It doesn't make any sense. I mean, you know, I want to tell him so bad. We beat you, cocky. Because you talk about arrogant fans, they were, oh man. But you know, they win all the time. So that's what happens to your fan base when you are constantly going after championships. They get a little bit full of themselves, and it was just so happy so glad. I was so happy to win that game, and it was funny. LeBron told me, he said, last year, the year before when they had lost to him at Cleveland, they asked them not to smoke cigars in the locker room, and they did it. And it took them about 6 months to get the smell and all that out, and the champagne on the floor and all that. So they asked the Cavs to do that. And LeBron said the last thing he was going to do was not smoke a cigar. And all of them lived. Funny. Oh man, it was funny. It was such a great experience that I'll never forget that. And that was one time I never slept from the time we won the game and we waited to get back home. And as soon as we got back home, we went straight to the pep rally, and it was about 99 degrees out there, man. That was I don't know how I stayed awake, but I did. It was a great experience.
So what you're saying is they bought you tickets. You guys snuck the equipment in.
Yeah.
You were able to broadcast the games, right?
Well, put it this way.
Yeah.
We didn't have the equipment, but it was there. And I don't know how I don't know how it got there. I didn't ask any questions. I was just, okay, all right, here we go. And then it's funny. I think they gave us a little slap on the hand right after that, but we had already had the championship then, so we kind of just went on and took what we had to take, and that was it.
I love it. Well, Austin Carr, thank you so much for being a part of this, for being a part of our 100th episode. It's been so fun talking about you and talking about the Cavaliers. Your excitement comes directly through the computer as we're talking. So here's hoping for hundreds more throw the hammer downs and hundreds more get that weak stuff out of here as the Cavaliers go on this season. Austin, we really, really appreciate your time.
Well, thank you, and congratulations on your 100th episode, and hope you have 1,000 more.